for our Michell University. Today we'll be working with Infor FACTS, and we'll be talking about the end-of-period process in purchase order. For the purpose of the demo today, we're using FACTS 7.7 for our demo. This webinar is being recorded. It'll be available on our website, so you can visit us at www.michellgroup.com to see this, plus the others in our training series. So what we've been doing the last few webinars, we've been talking about the end-of-period closing in FACTS. Most people refer to this as month-end or the month-end close. There are 5 modules that must be closed, and we've been doing webinars on these, so you can see. The modules that need to be closed are the sales orders, the inventory, the purchasing, the accounts receivables, accounts payables, and general ledger. Now, these should be closed at the end of the month before data is entered for the following month. There's some things you can do. Again, there's no particular order in which they need to be closed. Typically, what happens is the sales, inventory, and purchasing, since this is considered operational, this tends to be closed at the actual last day, at the end of the day of business, on the last day before the start of the new period. This tends to be closed. Typically, the receivables and payables could be left open for a couple days. Again, some people, you don't have to, but some people like to do that. Maybe it's the first of the month and you want to wait to see what comes in the mail or what kind of cash receipts you're going to get. You may have to cut a couple checks that you want to kind of date on the 30th, so you want to go a couple days into it. You may want to keep these open for a couple days. And then eventually the general ledger. Again, you may want to keep this open just a little bit to make sure, because we're not really entering any journal entries into this. As long as it's open, in fact, the general rule is that you can post to the current period and one period forward. So again, if your general ledger current period, let's say, is June, and you're in July, you're okay, because you may be just doing a couple entries. And we can see that in the module. So for example, if we go into, say, sales, and you'll notice anytime you do an update, so I'm going to go here into the sales, and I'm going to go into the daily sales register. And you're going to see here the SO, sales order current period, and the general ledger current period. So again, you can see that the SO current period is July 2010, and the current period for general ledger is June of 2010. For the purpose of the demo, I have my demo set for that period. I have my demo set as June 2010. So you can see that at this point, I have closed my sales order. So I closed my June sales order, so that's on my current period, but I haven't closed my general ledger. If we go into the other modules, let's go here. And we look at inventory, again, you'll see the same thing. If you look at, say, any of the updates, like the adjustment registers, again, you can see that inventory, the current period is June, and the general ledger current period. Inventory control, so we haven't closed this module out yet, and so on. So you'll see that throughout the system. Same thing if you go like into AP, and we go here to the document register. Again, you'll see the current period. So that's important. Again, you can post to the current period and one period forward. You can't go back. So once you close, in this case, you can see the current period for accounts payable is July, because again, we've closed to June and so on. So let's now go into, we're going to go to purchase order, and we're going to talk about the purchase order end of month or end of period. Every module has an end of period, so you can see, for example, here's purchase order. Again, if you go into sales order, you will see the end of period also. So what we do is we go into purchase order, and we go to our end of period. And typically there's reports to be run. Some have more than others, like for example, your AR, your accounts receivable, and your accounts payable. There's a lot more reports to run, accounting reports, distribution reports, and so on. But here you have these reports. And again, so if we look now, if we go to, say, a PO receiving and our receipts register, you can see the same thing. So again, the PO current period is June, and the AP and GL have been, AP has been closed out to July, and the general ledger is still in June. So when I finish closing out the period, and we come in here, we'll see that the current period will be July for purchase order. Also, you got to make sure you close all these. So for example, let's say in this case, AP is in July. So let's say I've closed everything but general ledger. So all the modules, the current period is July, and the GL is still in current period June. If I try to go into the sales order, which is our, let's say the current period is July, and I try to go and do the close of July, it won't let me because I can't have more than a one-period gap. So I can't have a module that has the current period of August and another one that has a current period of June. I can only have that 1 month. So that's why if you forget to close the general ledger for whatever reason, and next month you go to close your sales, you'll get that warning. Okay, so let's go back in. So let's go to end of period. And here's just some reports that we can run, and these reports are optional for removing data. And you can set these up in the infrequent file maintenance. So if we go to file maintenance, infrequent file maintenance, and we go into the static control, you can see here under the report usage. So use period receipts report, okay, period invoice receipts report, and period discrepancy. So we're having these turned on. So what we're going to do is we're going to use these to actually go in, and we're just going to run some reports at the end of the month to see what we received, what was invoiced, any discrepancies. And also we have the option to remove that data once we've printed them. So you can see, again, if you want to use those, you can turn them on here. I do have them set for the demo, so we can be able to run those reports. And that's in the PO static control file maintenance, which is in the infrequent file maintenance. Let's look at our first one. Okay, so here is our period receipt report. And what it does, this program allows the users to print a report of all the purchase orders receipts that were made during the period. The optional update, which I have turned on for the purpose of the demo, the optional update removes printed records from the file. So the user can determine which reports are available through the flag, which I set up. So we can run that. In this case, we're going to do it. So we're going to go here, and again, we can see our period. We're just going to say all warehouses, and there's our current period. So we're going to go here, and we're going to see down here the format. Our current period for the demo is June of 2010. We're going to put in 0610. We're going to click OK. Again, we're going to process the record so you can see these are all the receipts that were done. Here's the PO receivings. So we can print this and run it. One of the features we have in FACTS is the archive system, which is nice. We recommend that because this we can print this and we can store it, but then we have to rely on a hard copy, and if anything happens and we lose it, then we don't have the data. What we can do is we can go when we go to print, and I'm going to say no for right now. There's that removal. I want to run it again, so I'm not going to remove anything. But what I can do is I can go here, and then under my printer options, we can go to properties, and we can actually use what's known as the archive system. The archive is nice because what it'll do is it'll actually save a copy, but also let me print. So if I go here and I click it, you can see it's going to archive. I can give it a memo, so I can say month end, June 2010. And I can determine, again, I can set libraries of where I want to store it, so I can click OK. And what this is going to do, it's going to create a file copy of it, but it's also going to give you some options. Now, remember, in FACTS, when we deal with updates, typically you cannot update unless you run the register. For example, if you're in a daily sales register or accounting, anything, if you choose the viewer and you view the daily sales register, it's not going to ask you to update. So we always want some kind of copy, some kind of audit trail. So here we can do one of the things. Since we archived it, we can continue on the archive. And what that'll do is it'll archive it. So it won't print it or it won't view it. We can still print it if we wanted to, but the most important thing that I like about the archive is I can view it. I still want to make sure I'm okay. So what I'm doing is I'm viewing, you can see it created in the archive. So here it is right here, and what I'm doing is I'm archiving it and I'm also viewing it. I want to do this just in case there's a problem. Before I want to just say if something looks strange or that I want to make sure I don't run the update. But see, now I have it here, so I have it. And again, since I'm in the report viewer, I can also hard copy print it if I wanted to. But again, nice thing about that is once I'm done with that, I can continue on. So here, I'm going to remove the records. Keep my file nice and clean. I don't want to keep having a lot of data here. So what I'm doing is I'm going to remove my records. I'm going to click OK. Okay, and it removed all those receivings. So if we go back in again, and we go here, so we say 0610, and we said all warehouses. Again, we have them here, so we can see that. So they're removed. Again, that's going to take place once we do our final closeout. So we can run that. The other one's called the period invoice receipts report, and this is similar to the goods receipt. This is just the invoice. So what this program allows the user to print is a report of all the invoice received and any invoice that were entered from the purchase orders invoice receipt system. Again, you have the option with that flag to run this or not. So here what we can do is the same thing, just like the goods received, but this is invoice received. I'm just going to go here and change my options. And again, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set my set of properties, and I'm going to use the archiver again. I like to use that, so I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to run. And again, I can archive it, so I'm going to say, oops, month end, and click OK. And again, it's going to create the archive, and I have that option of viewing it, so I'm going to do both. So again, like the goods receipt, this is all the invoice receipts. Okay, so the same thing, we can print this. If it's okay, just go ahead and we can do the remove. Okay, and remove those records. We have the period receipts discrepancy. Again, what this is going to do, we can, again, set this run to run, and this program allows the user to print a report showing any discrepancies between the purchase order receipts and the invoice receipts. The program is, again, only available if you have the flags turned on to use the invoice receipt and use discrepancy. So during the invoice receipt program, both the invoice amounts and the actual received amounts are stored in the invoice receipts file. During the invoice receipts register, the extension, which is the cost multiplied by the unit's invoice of each item on the invoice, is compared to the extension, again, which is the cost multiplied by the units received on each line item on the receipt or purchase. So any discrepancies between the two are recorded in the period receipts discrepancy file. So what that means is basically is that when I do a goods receipt and I receive something, let's say I received 10 units at $1, but then when I get the actual AP invoice, the price went, say, to $1.05. So I have to enter in the AP invoice the $1.05 because that's what I paid for. So what it's going to do, it's going to discrepancy between the dollar that I received it at, which is my cost of my inventory, and the $1.05, which is my accounting cost. That 5 cents is going to go to a discrepancy or a variance account. And what this report's going to do, it's going to give you that information. So let's see if we have anything there. So again, we're going to go to print options. I'm just going to set my defaults here. I'm going to go use the archive again. And again, we're going to put our period 0610, and we're going to look at all branches. Again, I'm just going to give it a name. I'm going to click OK. You can see we've created the archive. Let's view it. Again, you can see a discrepancy here. You can see the cost receiving was 0, and this you got this discrepancies here, and so on. Here's all. This is again. This is demo data, so you typically wouldn't be receiving at 0 cost, but this is something you may see. So, for example, you received it at the price. The unit price was $64.88. And now the AP invoice was entered at $65.23. So there was a little discrepancy. So there was a change of $1.75. Again, I just want to note that for next time. Maybe there was a price increase from the vendor. I didn't catch it in time. I didn't update my my cost contracts. So again, this is a nice feature to see. So it lets me be aware of that. So I know that I can update or look at my last purchase price again, so I don't have that problem. And then the same thing, we just want to remove it. If we don't need it anymore, we have it archived. And that's what we run. The final step is the end period end update. And again, it tells you what you're going to do. This program will close out the current period. All right, the period to date purchase figures will be set to 0. So again, the month of dates and so on will start. You can see here the current period is June. It's just asking, have we run the reports? I'm going to say yes. We're going to enter yes. And that's it. So now, if we go into one of these receiving reports, any of these registers we talked about, you will see now that the current period is going to be June. So see here, the current period was June. Now it's July. So we've closed out our PO. Okay, so that takes care of the end of period closing. The period end in FACTS for the purchasing system. Again, to recap what we talked about, there are 5 modules that we must close. As part of the month-end process, we must close the sales, the inventory, the purchase order, the accounts receivable, the accounts payable, and the general ledger. There's no particular order in which they need to be closed. Typically, we just follow the list here. But you should, at least these 3, the sales, inventory, and purchase, since this is the operational, these must be closed at the end of the business day and before the start of the new business day for the following period. Again, you want that out, and the reason why you want that because if today's the last day of the month, tomorrow they're going to start selling. Okay, they're going to start receiving. So you want to have this closed out after the end of business, the last day of the month. Typically, receivables and payables are not affected on a daily basis, like cash receipts and check runs. So you can really hold those a couple days if you wanted to. And finally, general ledger, once everything's done, usually these 3 are the accounting function. And then these 3 are the operational function. But again, no preference, but they all need to be closed. And we saw in every module, like if we go to a purchase order, every module has an end of period menu. And again, typically you're going to start off with some reports. So we have the reports in the end of period. What the reports do, the period receipts, gave me a list of all the goods received that I did throughout the month. Okay, so I can copy that or archive that, and then I can remove that because I don't want to keep all that data. The period receipts report, what that does is the same thing, but it gives me all the receiving. So you have the goods received here for the first report, and then the period invoice is the invoice receiving. So again, you can run those and you can clear those out. The period receipts discrepancy is just a difference between these 2. As you saw from the example, I received something at $64, but the invoice came in at $65. So there was maybe a price increase or something. It's nice because I can run this report. It makes me aware of that. Maybe there was a price increase. Maybe I need to go in and change my my costing, my cost contracts, and update for that. And then the actual end of period. And what the end of period will do is basically zero out the month-to-date figures, update the year-to-date figures, reset the month so we can start the new month and set the current period, in this case from June to July. Okay, so that's our webinar today. Again, this is being recorded. You can visit us at our website at michellgroup.com to view this plus the other ones in our series. And once again, we thank you for your time.